Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, August 24th, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Kim Mo-gen. Before we begin, these are the stories we're following at the top of the hour. South Korea reported around 1,500 new COVID-19 cases Tuesday, still affected by the weekend effect. Meanwhile, authorities are ramping up efforts to boost the speed of vaccinations. Top nuclear negotiators from Seoul and Moscow will meet in the coming hour to discuss issues surrounding the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. And the southern regions of South Korea are being hit with pouring rain and gusty winds as the 12th typhoon of the year, Omai, swept the east coast. The torrential rainfall caused landslides and property damage, leading to the evacuation of thousands of people. Our top story this morning, the 12th typhoon of the year, Omais, has exited the South Korean peninsula and is heading east. The typhoon may be gone, but rain continues to fall across the nation. For more on this, we have our Choi Min-jung on the line for us. Min-jung, give us the latest.
Mo-gen, Typhoon Omais has left the peninsula and is currently escaping towards the East Sea. According to the National Weather Agency, as of 6 a.m., the typhoon was downgraded to an extratropical cyclone about 60 kilometers southwest of Ulleungdo Island. It was moving at the speed of 46 kilometers an hour with maximum wind speeds of 65 kilometers an hour. Although all typhoon warnings have been lifted, it is still raining heavily along the eastern and southern coasts. A strong wind advisory as well as heavy rain advisory has been issued for parts of Jeju Island. Many regions in the south of the nation are also under heavy rain watch. A heavy rain watch is issued when more than 60 millimeters of rainfall drops within the span of 3 hours.
Now, Min-jung, we hear that houses were flooded and hundreds were forced to evacuate as the southern regions were hit hard by the pouring rain. Tell us more about that.
That's right, Mo-gen. At midnight, the southern port city of Busan got hit by up to 88 millimeters of rain an hour. Fortunately, no one was injured, but a river overflowed, forcing around 30 nearby residents to evacuate. Some were also rescued after being trapped in submerged vehicles, and cars were turned away from bridges due to strong winds. More than 1,100 people from 840 households have evacuated in advance from areas of concern. Power was out for more than 200 houses in Ulsan and Busan. According to the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters, no casualties were reported as of 6 a.m. Authorities are advising people be careful of potential accidents as the ground has weakened due to heavy rain. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Mo-gen.
Thank you for the updates, Min-jung. Now, in other news, South Korea's chief nuclear envoy, No Kyu-duk, will hold talks in Seoul this morning with his Russian counterpart, Igor Morgulov. The top nuclear envoys are likely to discuss ways to bring North Korea back to the negotiating table as the North protests the Seoul-Washington joint military drills. South Korea is expected to call for Russia's full cooperation in resuming nuclear talks with the North for complete denuclearization and lasting peace on the Korean peninsula. And earlier on Monday, No met with top U.S. nuclear envoy Sung Kim to discuss providing the North with humanitarian aid to improve health amid the pandemic and increase the supply of drinking water. The United States has asked if American military bases in South Korea can be used to house refugees from Afghanistan. According to Seoul's foreign minister, no detailed negotiations are underway right now, but discussions have been held at a basic level. Pin-zi reports.
South Korea's National Security Advisor Seo-hoon confirmed on Monday that the U.S. has requested the use of American military bases in Korea as housing sites for evacuees from Afghanistan. He said the nation has a responsibility to provide a safe place for Afghans who have helped South Korea, adding that some of them have worked at Korean hospitals and diplomatic offices in Afghanistan for as long as 8 years. The top diplomat said that the government is currently looking for ways to bring them into Korea, known to be around 400 in total. During a parliamentary session on Monday, Foreign Minister Chung Eui-yong also admitted that this matter was discussed with allies at a very basic level, but said it was not discussed seriously, adding that there are currently no negotiations underway with the U.S. in regards to housing Afghan refugees. He also stressed that using U.S. military bases in South Korea as a refuge for evacuees does require the consent of the Korean government, and went on to say that the government is considering various options for Afghans who have cooperated with South Korea in the past. He said for the past 20 years, the government has invested a considerable amount of money in various humanitarian projects in Afghanistan, such as the building of hospitals, and there are a number of Afghans who participated or provided support during such projects. The remarks come after the Wall Street Journal recently reported that the U.S. is considering using its military bases overseas, including those in South Korea, Japan, and Germany, as housing sites for Afghanistan evacuees. 배은지, Arirang News.
And turning to the turmoil in Afghanistan after the Taliban's rapid takeover of the country, no major outbreaks of violence have been reported over the past 24 hours. However, the Taliban is warning the U.S. to remove troops by the original August 31st deadline. There are growing calls in Washington to extend that date as there are still an unknown number of Americans stuck in Afghanistan. Kim Sang-min reports.
Roughly a week since the Taliban's takeover in Afghanistan, the country's new rulers have retaken 3 districts in the northern part of the country that had fallen to local militia groups. That's according to a Taliban spokesman on Monday, who also said that there was no confirmed reports of further fighting. The 3 districts in the northern province of Baghlan have been under the control of local militia groups from last week as part of an armed resistance to the Taliban seizure of the capital, Kabul. The spokesman said the Taliban were now in control across the 3 regions surrounding the Panjshir Valley as they were done with clearing the districts. Panjshir is where forces of Ahmad Massoud have established themselves, an area which resisted both the Soviets and the Taliban 2 decades ago. While Massoud called for negotiations to form an inclusive government, he also insisted there would be resistance should Taliban forces try to enter the valley. While there are no signs of any fighting so far, an aide to Massoud said both their forces and those of the Taliban were standing ready for military action. Meanwhile, the U.S. is ramping up evacuation efforts at Kabul's airport. Washington said on Monday that 28 U.S. military flights had evacuated some 10,000 people from Kabul over the past 24 hours, something President Joe Biden called one of the largest, most difficult airlifts in history last week. The president also said he could not rule out extending the withdrawal efforts beyond August 31st, the original deadline set by the U.S. G7 leaders are also likely to push Biden on his plans during their virtual meeting set for Tuesday. After Biden's remarks, however, the Taliban warned that all U.S. forces must leave the country by August 31st. It said if the U.S. does not adhere to the removal of troops from Afghanistan by that date, it would be a, quote, clear violation of the agreement and that proper and necessary decisions will have to be made. Kim Sang-min, Arirang News.
We now turn to the COVID-19 situation. South Korea has been in the grip of the 4th wave for some time now, and the capital area has had the highest social distancing measures in place for 6 weeks. For more on this, we have our Kim Do-yeon at the News Center standing by for us. Do-yeon, let's first start with the new infections today.
Again, South Korea reported 1,509 new cases of COVID-19 on Tuesday, of which all but 39 were locally transmitted. The number is still impacted by the slow testing over the weekend, but comparing it to last Tuesday, the first day out of a long weekend, it is 137 higher. The relatively high number of cases, authorities say, is expected to continue through September. Commissioner Chung Eun-kyung of the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency addressed members of the National Assembly's Health and Welfare Committee on Monday, saying that with around 70% of the nation receiving at least the first dose of the vaccine, the spread should slow down.
Okay, then let's talk about what's happening on the vaccination front. Like you've mentioned, that will certainly be a way of curbing the spread of the virus, and we're closing in on the targeted date for reaching herd immunity.
Well, again, until recently, the inoculation drive had been stymied due to supply issues, especially from Moderna not being able to provide what they had initially promised to deliver in August, but it seems like things will pick up again. First, let's take a listen to what Prime Minister Kim Boo-kyum had to say this morning.
After a number of efforts, including representatives complaining in person at Moderna in the US, more than 7 million doses have been confirmed to be delivered by early September, and the first batch arrived yesterday. That said, We will adjust the vaccination plan so our citizens can receive them sooner.
He added that specific details to the changes will come in the afternoon briefing, but one possibility is that from now on, second jabs will be administered 4 weeks after first dose. Currently, they are given after 6 weeks. That's a bit of stretch because Pfizer second doses are recommended to be given after 3 weeks and Moderna's after 4. Initially, the period between doses was extended due to supply problems, but with that issue partially resolved, a further change could be a priority to shorten the time needed to reach herd immunity. The WHO chief says booster shots should be delayed due to the importance of raising the global vaccination rate. Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said on Monday that countries with low vaccination rates should be given priority for vaccines because without global inoculation, stronger variants could develop. In addition, he questioned the effectiveness of the booster shots, saying there is still an ongoing debate on the subject. This comes as many countries have begun administering third jabs to people around 4 to 6 months after fully vaccination, as according to some studies, immunity could be compromised in that time. The US FDA has granted full approval to the COVID-19 vaccine developed by Pfizer and its partner BioNTech. The agency says approval will help the US after the course of the pandemic. Kim Yo-sun has more.
The US FDA has formally approved Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine, replacing the emergency use authorization granted by the agency last December. The decision is expected to boost the vaccination rate across the U.S., where around 52% of the population have been fully vaccinated. With the approval, the vaccine also got the brand name Comirnaty. The FDA reassured the American public that the full approval means the vaccine meets high standards for safety, effectiveness, and manufacturing quality. It added the milestone puts the U.S. one step closer to altering the course of the pandemic. The full approval applies to people 16 and older, with children aged 12 through 15 still eligible to get the shot under emergency use authorization. President Biden hailed the move on Monday, urging unvaccinated people to get their inoculations now.
The FDA approval is the gold standard. And as I just said, now it has been granted. Those who have been waiting for full approval should go get your shot now. The vaccination is free, it's easy, it's safe, and it's effective, and it's convenient.
He also encouraged American businesses to step up vaccine requirements for their employees. President Biden also stressed that the Delta variant is causing a pandemic of the unvaccinated, with nearly all COVID-19 hospitalizations and deaths being reported among those who are not inoculated. Against this backdrop, all New York City public school teachers and other staffers will be mandated to receive their shots as the city ramps up protections before the beginning of the new school year next month. Under the city's first no-option vaccination mandate, some 148,000 school employees will be required to get at least one dose by September 27th. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
The South Korean government and the ruling Democratic Party are planning to ensure next year's budget is more than this year's $517 billion budget to help the economy recover from the pandemic. During a meeting Tuesday, they discussed focusing the bigger budget on damage compensation for small business owners and entrepreneurs, as well as disease quarantine efforts, including vaccine purchases. The party's floor leader, Yoon Ho-jung, said the 2022 budget must provide support for the most vulnerable and help South Korea recover from the pandemic. He also stressed that the supplementary budget that secured $850 million for damage compensation did not take into account unexpected variables such as the Delta variant. In the first half of this year, South Korean tech giants took half of the global market share for TVs. Market research firm Omdia said Tuesday that Samsung Electronics sold some 21 million TVs, accounting for 31% of global sales. This is up roughly 10% on year, and it means the company this year is likely to hold the biggest market share for the 16th year in a row. LG Electronics had 19% of global TV sales, beating Japan's Sony, which had about 9%, and China's TCL with around 7%. Experts say the focus on premium models helped South Korean firms dominate the market. Hyundai Motor has brought to Korea an exhibition featuring some advanced robots, the kind that we'll be seeing more of in our daily lives. It explores the latest in related tech and examines our relationship with robots and where we could be headed. Min Suk-hyun takes us to Hello Robot, designed between human and machine.
What was your first experience with a robot? Do we need robots? Do you trust robots? This exhibition throws 14 essential questions about robots and their roles in human life.
The exhibition, Hello Robot, designed between human and machine, has arrived in Busan in collaboration with Hyundai Motor Company. Featuring over 200 exhibits, it not only lets visitors admire the latest in robot technology, but gives them the chance to explore our relationship with machines. It shows a wide variety of forms that robots take today and how they're used or could be used at home, work, and in the medical field. The exhibition questions how we choose to deal with these new technologies and makes us reflect on our thoughts about robots.
I think robot development for healthcare and medicine is progressing well in that it's helping people get better, both physically and psychologically. But I would feel a little bit different if we had like robot dogs and not real dogs to interact with. I would like my child to interact with something real instead.
Currently on display at Hyundai Motor Studio Busan are some of Hyundai's robots, such as Tari, a service robot equipped with artificial intelligence, and Max, a medical wearable robot that helps people walk. Others include Boston Dynamics dancing robot, Spot and Atlas, who you might have seen dancing with K-pop stars BTS.
The reason why we present the robots from Hyundai Motor and Boston Dynamics as part of the Hello Robot exhibition is to introduce the kind of robots that Hyundai is preparing and looking into.
Hyundai Motor has shown growing interest in the future mobility business, such as self-driving vehicles, flying cars, and robotics over the past few years. In November, the country's top automaker said it would invest about $1.3 billion in robotics by 2025. And in June, Hyundai Motor completed its acquisition of American engineering and robotics design company Boston Dynamics. Following its Asia debut in Busan, the exhibition Hello Robot will be held at Hyundai Motor Studio Beijing from December this year. Min Suk-hyun, Arirang News, Busan.
With the Tokyo Paralympic Games kicking off tonight, the South Korean delegation will enter the opening ceremony as the 81st country. This was revealed by the International Paralympic Committee Monday after organizers previously informed the South Korean delegation that they would be at the 92nd country to enter. Due to the record number of COVID-19 cases in Tokyo, South Korea will only send a small delegation to the ceremony, including team leader Chu Won-hong. The first team to enter will be the refugee Paralympic team.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris met with Singapore's leaders on Monday, kicking off her first visit to Southeast Asia since the start of the Biden administration. Harris met with Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, as well as President Halimah Yacob, with their talks aimed at broadening cooperation with Singapore to offer a counterweight to China's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific region. At a joint press conference with the Prime Minister, Harris took the opportunity to address the U.S.'s commitment to its allies in the region.
I reaffirmed in our meeting the United States' commitment to working with our allies and partners around the Indo-Pacific to uphold the rules-based international order and freedom of navigation, including in the South China Sea.
While Singapore is not a U.S. treaty ally, it still remains one of its strongest security partners in the region with deep trade ties. Meanwhile, later this week, Harris will travel to Vietnam to hold talks with leaders there. Watchers say part of the vice president's task during her trip to Singapore and Vietnam will be to convince leaders in both countries that Washington's commitment to the region is firm and not parallel to Afghanistan. Over to Ukraine, where foreign officials, including the president of the European Council, Charles Michel, arrived in Kiev on Monday to take part in the Crimea Platform, a summit designed to keep international attention focused on returning the Crimea Peninsula back to Ukraine. According to the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry, 44 representatives of foreign states and international entities are to take part in the talks. During the summit, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky vowed to do everything possible to get back control of the peninsula so that Ukraine becomes part of Europe. In response, the European Council President stressed the EU's unwavering stance that they will not recognize the illegal annexation of Crimea by Russia. Back in 2014, Russia annexed Crimea following the revolution in Ukraine that saw its former president and Russian ally Viktor Yanukovych ousted and the government overthrown. And finally to Haiti, where the country continues to struggle to recover from the massive earthquake that hit earlier this month. A Haitian gang leader proposed a truce in order to help communities that have been devastated by the earthquake, potentially providing a break for a relief effort that has been plagued by hijackings of aid trucks and disorder. Gangs have reportedly been blocking roads and stealing supplies from aid trucks, forcing relief workers to transport aid by helicopter. 이승재, Arirang News.
Good morning. The typhoon has been downgraded to an extratropical storm, and now a broad area of low pressure has formed in the west and is dropping torrential rain on the nation. Jeollabuk-do province seems to be getting the worst of it, though. Heavy rain alerts are in place in the southwest, and the rain advisory could be expanded to more regions today as rain picks up. Meanwhile, wind wave advisory is in place for seas around the peninsula. Downpours will drench the Jeollado and Gyeongsang-do provinces. They could see 200 more millimeters of rain. The capital and Gangwon-do province forecast to get 30 to 80 millimeters. Afternoon readings will be similar to a few notches higher this afternoon. Seoul and Daejeon going up to 28 degrees. Daegu and Gyeongju at 30 degrees this afternoon. Now we'll wrap up the month on a rainy note as nation will continue to get soaked by the autumn monsoon, causing problems in certain areas which have already been heavily impacted by showers. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that will do it for us at this hour on Arirang News. We'll be back at noon Korea time, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching and goodbye.